tonight's public engagement session on the 2017 budget. Have a quick note to read out here, and then we'll get into the presentation. So for those of you present this evening and for those watching via television, let me please explain that a public engagement meeting is an opportunity for information to be shared. This meeting allows council members to hear from members of the public on concerns or comments with regards to the 2017 budget. It should be noted that council members will not be taking questions or responding to any questions raised. All questions should be addressed to the City of Prince Rupert staff only. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be taken back for further discussion prior to the final adoption of the budget, which is scheduled to occur in April. Some key points to remember when asking your questions or making your comments are: it is very important to speak slowly when introducing yourself and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. Please try to keep your questions and comments brief, as other people require time to speak. Once you have completed your questions, please return to your seat. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting on any requests or concerns you have made. Lastly, questions may require staff to review, report, and make recommendation to council at a later date. Before we get in the presentation, I'll first quickly explain the voting system here. So for those at home and those in the audience if you have a smartphone in the audience, you can use that. If not, we have paper copies of the ballot. But there's an address there, the pollev.com/cityofpr. That's if you want to go to the website. Or you can text 37607 to that number with the answers. Do you want to go next slide? Do I explain that now? Oh yeah, or you tweet at poll with the corresponding response code. So later when we show you, are you going to show it now? Yeah. So here's an example question. So what will happen is you'll see, this is an example question. So if you were to vote for purple, for example, as your answer, you would text or put the code 457696 into your phone, and that would then put your answer to purple. And so each item has a code, and you send that code to the number, and that will give you record your vote. So that's how it works. I'll explain it later when we actually get going on the voting. But that's the gist of how we do that. And that being said, we'll start the presentation, and then after the presentation, we'll have comments from the public, and then the voting. And take it away.
Good evening. Thank you for attending or watching from home our first of two public consultations on the 2017 budget. Staff presented the 2017 municipal budget on March 6th. We will be showing a snapshot of that presentation for the purpose of public engagement and feedback at this public consultation. Council will listen to the comments and questions from the public as part of their deliberation of this year's budget bylaws. After the presentation, people are asked to approach the microphone and either ask their question of staff or provide their comments. Following that engagement opportunity, we will be asking those viewing from home and here in the audience to participate and vote on 3 questions, which will help inform the council. However, before we start talking about the budget, we would like to show the viewers here and at home 2 short videos. The first is a snapshot of some of the achievements from 2016, and the second is a video we presented last year to help people understand property taxes. Oops, sorry.
Meet Susan. This year, she bought her first home in Tiny Town. Susan understands a bit about property taxes, but she still has some questions. Who sets the property tax rate? And how are the property tax rates calculated? The city's finance department calculates the property tax rates by creating an annual budget, which is subject to approval by City Council. Once total projected expenses are calculated, other revenues that the city receives, like provincial grants and fees from public services, are subtracted from those expenses. The remainder is to be covered by property taxes in order to balance the budget. How do I calculate my personal property taxes? The property taxes you personally pay on your home or business are based on the assessed value of your property provided by the BC Assessment Office. Each year, the city recalculates the tax rate for each type of property: residential, commercial, and some form of industrial, in order to make sure that it doesn't collect more than what's needed to balance the budget. Here is an example of how changes to assessed values can impact the property taxes you pay. Let's say the city of Tiny Town only has 3 homes, and each home is assessed at $100,000. The total taxes needed to balance the town's budget is $600. That means that the tax rate must be set at $600 divided by the total values of all properties, which equals 0.002. That means each property owner pays $100,000 times 0.002, which equals $200 each. Each property pays their share of taxes based on their assessed value. So what if your assessed values have changed? Let's say the next year, the assessed value for the same 3 homes has changed, and one is now worth $150,000, one is still worth $100,000, and the last is now worth $80,000. Tiny Town still needs $600 to balance the budget. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. Again, the city will divide the $600 needed by the total value of all properties, which equals a new property tax rate of 0.0015. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. This means that the first property owner, whose value went up, will pay $270. The homeowner, whose value stays the same at $100,000, will pay $180. And the homeowner, whose assessed value declined, will pay $144. If you have any issues with the assessment of your property, you can contact BC Assessments at 1-866-825-8322. This is a simple explanation of how your property taxes are calculated each year.
We hope the previous videos were informative. Now we will recap some of the information originally presented to Council on March 6th. After taking into account expected revenues and expense items, the city has an operating deficit of $160,000. This is based on no increases to service levels and funding the majority of capital through grants, dividends, reserves, and surplus. The result is an increase of 1.5% to the mill rate to balance the budget. To calculate the impact to a property owner of the recommended mill rate, one needs to compare the 2016 general property tax to the amount calculated for 2017. The 2016 general property tax can be found on the 2016 property tax notice as shown in the red circles. This is the formula to calculate the general levy. Take 2017's assessed value divided by 1,000 times the 2017 mill rate. This is the municipal property tax for 2017. Compare this to the 2016 general property tax as found on the previous slide. This will inform you whether the taxes have gone up or down on your home. We have provided all of the proposed mill rates on the next slide for viewers to calculate the potential impact to them, whether it be their home or their business property. On the far right column are the proposed municipal rates for 2017. They are compared to the 2016 mill rates in yellow. You will note the rate has decreased for residents. This is because assessed values have increased, so we adjust the rate to take in only the amount needed to balance the budget. The mill rate is only a multiplier of the assessed value to arrive at a dollar figure. It is not a reference to the closed pulp mill. We have provided the effect to a homeowner with an average assessed value in both 2016 and 2017. In 2016, a homeowner with an average assessed value of $244,000 paid $1,647 in municipal tax. In 2017, the average assessed value of a home is $260,000. Therefore, if a homeowner had an average assessed value home in 2016 and an average assessed value home in 2017, the homeowner could expect to pay $1,685 in municipal tax. This is $38 more for the year, which is just over $3 per month or 10 cents more per day. This slide shows the projected daily cost for the average homeowner in 2017. For example, every day, an average household will contribute $4.62 per day to access all municipal services excluding utilities. This translates into $1.85 for all protective services, 42 cents for roads and sidewalks, 75 cents for parks and recreation, 28 cents for community services grants, and 23 cents for airport access, to name a few of the services. Here is an incremental assessed value list of expected municipal tax paid at the 2016 actual rate and the proposed 2017 rate after incorporating the recommendation. If a property owner's value stayed the same between 2016 and 2017, the property owner could expect to pay less tax in 2017 because the 2017 proposed mill rate is lower than in 2016. Many home values did increase during the year. However, others stayed the same or decreased. This is why it is important to calculate the expected value of taxes individually to determine the impact to each property owner. It is not a simple statement that everyone's taxes may be going up. This is shown on the following slide. Under the column detailing no change to the mill rate, 1,989 households will see either no change or a reduction to their tax bill compared to last year. 1,360 will see an increase of between $0 and $100 compared to last year. 398 will see an increase between $100 and $200, and 249 will see an increase between $200 and $300. Compare this to the balanced budget rate structure with the inclusion of the 1.5% increase to the mill rate. That is on the far right-hand column. 1,604 households will see either no change or a decrease in their tax bill compared to last year. 1,551 will see an increase between $0 and $100. 523 will see an increase between $100 and $200, and 281 will see an increase between $200 and $300. Therefore, because assessed values have decreased, increased, or stayed the same, households will see a change to their tax bill even if Council didn't approve the recommended increase to balance the budget. Of all 4,215 households, 63% of them will either pay less tax than last year or pay less than an additional $40. We have created this visual for viewers to see where their tax dollars are expected to be spent in 2017. It is similar to 2016. The largest allocations are to RCMP at 24%, fire at 16%, recreation at 12%, roads and sidewalks at 9%, and grants at 6%. These 5 categories make up 67% of the services funded through taxation. Council has made the decision to utilize funds from the city's wholly owned subsidiary, Legacy Inc., to fund out-of-the-ordinary expenditures rather than burden taxpayers immediately or burden them in the near term through a loan. Some of these out-of-the-ordinary expenditures are large capital expenditures like the water project. The city, in applying for grants, must contribute a portion of the cost of a project. Another example is the Watson Island dismantlement and the capacity funding for planning for major projects. The 2017 budget includes funding by Legacy in the amount of $7.389 million. $1.3 million is in respect to planning for economic growth, and $6.089 million for capital expenditure funding. Council support for using Legacy funds to finance these out of the ordinary expenses means that the city can undertake important capital expenditures at no cost to the taxpayers and ratepayers. The 2017 budget anticipates another year of planning for major projects. By using Legacy funds instead of taxpayers' funds, this translates into a savings in the mill rate of 11%. Additionally, the general capital expenditures budgeted in 2017, for example, repaving 3rd Avenue, would have resulted in a 17% increase in the mill rate in the absence of loan funding. Instead, the city has chosen to use dividends from Legacy to fund these projects. Additionally, if the city didn't use Legacy funds for the water project, water rates would need to be funded by either substantial increase to the water rates or through loans paid back by the taxpayer over time. With loan funding for the water project alone, the increase in water rates over 10 years would have been an additional 18% or 11% for a 20-year loan. Because Legacy is being used to offset these costs, there is no impact to the taxpayer and ratepayer. Given that the city has an operational shortfall of $160,000, one of the questions a taxpayer may ask is why are we not funding the shortfall with a dividend from Legacy Inc., like we are for capital needs? This slide answers that question. Using Legacy funds to alleviate the incremental operational increases yearly can have dire consequences. In this example, we have used Legacy to offset a hypothetical yearly increase in cost of 3%. We have considered in this example that the funds available in Legacy are depleted by year 8. This means in year 8, the expenses have gone up to $614,940 when in year 1 they were at $500,000. Using Legacy to keep mill rate increases at 0 every year until there is no money available from Legacy results in a mill rate increase in year 8 of 23%. This is not reasonable or understandable to the people living in our community in year 8. The current method of making small incremental increases to fund operational costs results in smoother rate changes and keeps pace with normal operational increases such as contractual and statutory obligations and normal increases in cost of supplies and services. Staff are always cognizant of the fact that we are not just the stewards of the people living in the community today, but we are also responsible to the community of tomorrow. The following 3D graph will show you the change over time in the assessment values of the 4 largest tax classes the city collects from. The graph starts in 1998 and goes to the present day. Light industrial is the pink bars, and it hasn't changed much since 1998. Major industrial is the yellow bars. Since 2006, we have introduced 2 new industries, the container port and Pinnacle pellet plant, an expansion of the coal facility, and an expansion of the container port. With all that investment, the average value of assessments for the major industrial tax class has only gone up 8.5% since 2006. The green bars represent the assessment value for businesses, which has nearly doubled since 2006. Finally, the red bars represent the assessment value for the residential tax classes, which has doubled since 2006. As you can see, the residential property assessments have increased substantially as compared to the assessments for major industry, despite significant new industrial investments. So why the difference? The assessments for major industrial terminals consider the depreciation or loss of value from the assets owned by industry over time. For instance, if a major industrial property owner builds a new improvement like a warehouse on their property, every year after the initial purchase, the value of the warehouse will go down due to wear and tear, maintenance requirements, etc. Meanwhile, residential properties are assessed based on market transactions observed in the real estate market from year to year. The neighbor who listed for and sold their home at a price higher than market value has in turn increased your property's assessed value. These valuations are made by the BC Assessment Authority, which the city has no control over. The point of this graph is to show the differences between the ways that types of properties, residential, business, and industrial, are valued by BC Assessment over time, which then impacts the proportion of property taxes paid by each tax class. There is no doubt that taxes in Prince Rupert are higher than our neighbours. We offer some services that other communities do not have, for example, airport access. However, there is a legislative reason why taxes are higher in Prince Rupert. In 2004, the province of British Columbia capped the major industrial mill rate for all municipalities with a qualifying import-export property. Therefore, the city can only charge capped rates on industry that is considered eligible. All of the city's major industrial operating activity qualifies for these capped rates. Unlike residential and business properties, industrial properties assessments decline, as shown in the previous slide. Therefore, a cap on a declining assessment results in diminishing tax revenues. This graph shows the impact to the City of Prince Rupert by rate-paying category from 2004, when the tax caps were introduced, through to 2016. You can see on the yellow line where new investment offers a spike of new taxation from major industry, but declines afterwards as assessed values decline. The red line is the residential tax revenue, and the green line is the business tax revenue. The residential burden has increased from $4.7 million to $6.8 million in 12 years. The business burden has increased from $3.2 million to $4.9 million. Major industrial tax revenue has declined from $4.5 million to $3 million. There are two new industries, an expansion of the coal terminal and an expansion to the container port in this time frame. Staff and council have continued to educate the province on the impacts to our particular community of this provincial legislation. We are still hopeful our discussions will bring meaningful change to our circumstance. This slide shows the taxation change from just one industrial ratepayer that benefits from the provincial tax cap legislation. You can see that the impact of the cap combined with the diminishing value of assessment results in less tax taken in by the city annually. The city's needs increase with inflation, so we constantly have higher budget needs. At the same time, the provincial legislation results in a gap that can only be filled by the other tax-paying classes if alternative forms of revenue aren't available. This was clearly shown in the last graph. Viewers can see that the expansion of the container port in 2017 did not translate into additional tax revenues to the city this year because of a loss of taxable assessment. It is expected that changes to the proposed mill rates are likely, given it is tied to assessed values. BC Assessment will release their revised roll March 31st, which will take into account any appeals to assessed value. Any reductions to assessed values may impact the proposed mill rates. Given that property taxes are not tied to ability to pay, homeowners should familiarize themselves with available programs that may offer some relief for those that qualify. The provincial government offers residents the homeowner grant and tax deferral programs. These programs are available to reduce property taxes paid and defer the tax payments through a loan that is recovered at the time of sale. Please contact City Hall for details of each program or look on your property tax notice. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We can take questions now from the audience. If you do not have the opportunity to either ask a question or make a comment for council to hear today, we will have another public consultation opportunity next Monday, March 20th at 7 p.m. in council chambers located in City Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Bauman. Why don't we do public comments first, and then I'll explain the voting after that. So, anyone who would like to come forward can ask Ms. Bauman any questions. Welcome back, Mr. Golden.
Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised.
So, because so much of this is dealing with Legacy Inc., could we get a current, just as part of the budget process, could we see what's going on with them? Since we know that, I know that they're major, that some of the money that they were counting on hasn't come through because of whatever. Go into that another time. So we really need to see what, since they're, like it was $3.8 million or something's coming out of it, we should be able to see what's going into it. Secondly, I see and again, it's one of those technical things that just came up. The city is budgeting $400,000 revenue from Watson Island, but Watson Island is now owned by Legacy, so Legacy could quickly give them the money and stuff like that. This could be an oversight, or it could be real. So to me, to make the budget, to make the next meeting meaningful, we need to see what's going on with Legacy, its income, what it has in the bank right now, what is spent, what to expect from the next year, barring the sale of some property. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from our only other audience member? Okay, well, since there's only two people here tonight, we'll move into the electronic voting to see if there's people at home who want to participate. And for those that are watching, again, Monday we'll have another opportunity to comment on the budget. So the way it works here is there'll be, I believe it's 3 questions that are going to be asked to the folks at home and the people in the audience. And so if you're on a computer, you can go to the web address pollev.com/cityofpr. If you have a mobile phone, you can text your answers to 37607, or you can tweet at poll with their response code. So we'll go to the next slide. There we go. And so are we going to run a test here? So we'll do a quick test here. So at this moment, you can vote for either purple, white, red, or green. And you'll see that each item has a code next to it. So purple, for example, has 457696. So you would either text that number to the code number, or you would put that into the computer. And you can just play around with that for now. I'll give you folks a minute to play around with that.
The question is, what color is this slide? And you can see it at the very, very top.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you'll see the question at the very, very top. There's this test question. What color is this slide? So you can either text your answer, or you can use a computer, or you can tweet one of those codes. And for those in the audience, if you don't want to do that, you can there's a piece of paper there that you can manually fill out. Okay, so why don't we go to the first question. Okay, so first question is, do you agree with the city pursuing a regional approach to the funding of shared services, for example, airport, ferry, library, etc.? So you can text yes or no. Yes is 457541, and no is 457542.
We will leave each question up for about 2 minutes.
Good to see folks at home watching. Are you able to see how many responses are coming in? Okay. I'll give it another 30 seconds here. Okay. Any other responses come in there? Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. So yes, 90%, no, 10% on that one. So second question is, do you agree with the city's decision to utilize legacy funding for major infrastructure projects to avoid burdening taxpayers? So you can vote yes at 457-607 or no 457-618. Give it another 30 seconds here. For anyone at home who's maybe having troubles, once again, you have to text that number where it says yes 457-607 or no 457-618 to the code, or click it online or tweet that code. Same response, right? Okay. Okay, so that was 70% yes, 30% no. And we'll move on to the last, is this the last question? Okay, so do you agree that home and business owners should shoulder too much of the tax burden compared to industry? So yes, 458-485, no, 458-486. And once again, the question is, do you agree that home and business owners shoulder too much of the tax burden compared to industry? Do you want me to wait? Okay. Same? Okay. So that was 82% yes, 18% no. And I believe that is the final question. Correct? Okay. Therefore, I believe that's okay. Thank you for those at home participating. That's great. Lots of participation from folks at home. The rain's cleared up, so I'm sure people not wanting to leave the home right now. Again, this Monday coming up, we have another opportunity to comment on the budget, 7 o'clock here in council chambers. And at any time, you can come talk to us about the budget as well. Nothing moving forward here is set in stone until at least after March 31st, when the final results of the BC assessment values come back to us. And then it's anticipated sometime in April there'll be some sort of final adoption for the budget. But we do appreciate your feedback through the polling and those who came forward, and look forward to seeing anybody on Monday. And at that being said, I would entertain them. I guess I never even motioned to begin the agenda, so A motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned.